spirit of Unity's online ministry. I'm so excited to have you with me today. My name is Reverend Alicia-Leslie, and I've got a great message to share with you about how to break through your barriers in life. You know, those things that seem like they're standing between you and what you want? Well, it's my prayer that when I'm done today, you will be able to break through those barriers. We're going to begin with a reading from the Daily Word, which is Unity's inspirational magazine. It's got a great thought for every day, and it's the way I open my day, every day when I open my eyes. Today's message is protected. And it says, the power of God protects me and my loved ones. The one presence in the universe, God, the good, is all-powerful, all-knowing, and everywhere present. I turn to the presence of God within me to guide my choices, inspire my thinking, adjust my attitude, and infuse my interactions with love and respect. I give thanks for the illuminating light that surrounds me, the divine love that enfolds me, the power that protects me. Likewise, I hold this truth for my loved ones, and I know they are safe and secure. With my faith and trust firmly in God, I am at peace. I am free to enjoy life, to travel, and to savor new adventures, living each day with confidence. The scripture comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 28, verse 7. The Lord is my strength and my shield. In him my heart trusts, and so does mine. I'd like to share a story with you from the Bible. It's called Spies in Canaan, and it comes from the book of Numbers. As Moses and the Israelites were roaming around in the wilderness, they were looking for the promised land, the land that flows with milk and honey that God told them would be theirs. God comes to Moses and tells him, I want you to send spies into Canaan and have them report back to you about the land and the people and see if it's fertile, and have them bring you back samples of the produce and such. So Moses selects a leader from each of the 12 tribes and sends them out to spy on the land of Canaan. And they go out there and they find it is indeed a rich land with rich people, great produce, fertile soil, and they started to collect up the pomegranates and figs, and they got a cluster of grapes that was so big, 2 men had to carry it on a stick that they hoisted up on their shoulders. When Moses saw the spies coming back, he called together all the people, and they awaited the report. And the spies said, oh yes, this is a land that flows with milk and honey. It has got great soil, and it's got wonderful produce and riches. However, the people are fierce, and they live in a fortress, and there's no way we're going to be able to get through. 2 of the spies did not agree. That was Caleb and Joshua. Caleb calmed the people down and said, whoa, wait a minute. I believe this is the land that God promised us. I believe this is the land that flows with milk and honey that we've been looking for. And I believe that because God said it, we can have it. And I think we should go and take it now. Well, of course, the other men, the other spies said, no, the people they're like giants, and we're like grasshoppers next to them. We can't do this. Well, then the arguing started in the back and forth, and it wound up that they wandered around in the wilderness for many, many years, and all but 2 of the spies even died off from one cause or another, and only 2 were with the remaining Israelites when they entered the promised land. Now, do you think you know who those 2 spies were? You got it right if you're thinking Caleb and Joshua, because they believed this was the land that was promised, and it teacher was just getting the kids together. She kind of wanted to know where they were on their little educational path, as it was just September and they were just coming into their first year of school. She said, I want to know how many of you know their ABCs. All the hands went up. Very good. How many of you can count to 100? Well, not as many hands went up. She said, how many of you can add and subtract? Well, very few hands went up. There was one little girl that the teacher noticed every time she asked a question, that hand shot right up there. So she decided to kind of push it a little bit, and she goes, how many of you can speak French? Only one hand went up, and we know whose that was. That little brave girl, and that hand went up, and the teacher said, oh, Marcy, you can speak French? And she said, oh, yes. Teacher said, okay, Marcy, how about if you say a few words to us? And Marcy looked at her like she had two heads, and she said, well, I don't know how. And the teacher said, but you just said you can speak French. And Marcy said, well, I can. I just haven't learned how. What about you? Are there perceived barriers of not knowing how that are keeping you from what you want? You know, in today's instant gratification culture, we're very often, something like learning how to do something seems like such a barrier we can't get through it. But you can, because we have so many resources available to us, online, community colleges, libraries. We can learn whatever it is that we want to learn if we simply take the time. So I invite you to learn that which you feel you aren't ready, you don't know yet. Now, another barrier that seems to stand in our way would be physical problems or limitations, age, size, height, weight, hearing, speaking, all those things. You remember Moses didn't even want to take the people out of Babylon because he said he couldn't speak well because he stuttered. Well, his way around that barrier was to appoint his brother-in-law Aaron to go with him and do the speaking. So you see, it all comes out. There's always a way around that barrier. Let's think about a few people that had barriers that might challenge. Well, how about, first of all, Beethoven? He went deaf when he was 4. But he had the music in him, and he got it out. How about Helen Keller? Deaf, mute, blind, but look at the things that she did. Did you know that Henry Winkler is dyslexic and Danny Glover has epilepsy? And did you know that Kristi Yamaguchi, the Olympic champion skater, has clubfoot? And how about Michael J. Fox and what he's done in spite of the perceived barrier of Parkinson's disease? And Stephen Hawking, he has ALS, and in 1963, when he was only 21 years old, he was diagnosed with a neurological disorder that I can't pronounce the name. I do apologize, not at this moment. I haven't learned how yet. But he was told he had 2 years to live. And next year, it's going to be 50 years since that time. And he has lived a very productive life, that he has given much to the world of physics. So whatever physical limitations or barriers you think you have, I invite you to think of them maybe as not the barriers that you perceive them to be. Now, another barrier, it has to do with fear and anxiety. And I'd like to go back to another story. It's not a true story, but it's a true story. And it comes from a wonderful source of wisdom called Star Trek. In this episode of Star Trek, Captain Kirk and Spock are in a battle, and they run along. They see there's this tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, their crew members are being beaten and tortured. Spock goes running off down the tunnel, and Captain Kirk comes right after him. And run along, Spock gets into the fray and starts fighting. But Captain Kirk goes wham up against an invisible barrier. What happened? He goes, Spock, I can't get through. What's wrong? And he looked like a mime, can't get through this invisible barrier. Spock turns around and says, Kirk, it's your anxiety. That's an anxiety screen. screen lowered to get through. And even in the middle of his anxiety, he had to take a breath, get centered, and visualize that anxiety screen going down so that he can get through. Do you have any fear or anxiety blocking you from your good? I invite you to let that screen of anxiety come down so that you can do the wonderful things that you were blessed to do. You know, because you're here, you have a purpose to be here. One of my heroes, Cabot Roberts, said, "Oh dear God, please don't let me die until I'm dead." I had to think about that thought a lot. I want to live my life every day to the fullest in this great adventure. I want to give everything that I have to give. I truly want to touch hearts and change lives with whatever I have that I can share. You know, you might not think you have anything much to offer. Oh, don't take that barrier on at all. I'd like to point out a buttercup. I don't know if you're familiar with buttercups, little yellow flowers. When we were kids, we used to hold them underneath our neck to see if it made the bottom of our chin yellow, which would have meant that, yes, we like butter. But that's not the purpose of a buttercup. A buttercup's purpose, well, I guess it was because it was fun and it was enjoyable. That is a good purpose. But the purpose of the buttercup is to be a part of the whole life ecosystem where it springs forth, it opens its petals, and it offers its pollen and its fragrance and its color to the bees who come and collect the pollen and fertilize other plants and make honey and all these good things. Through its leaves, it performs photosynthesis, which enriches our air. It turns carbon dioxide into oxygen. Well, hello, that may be one little buttercup, but it does its big and wonderful job, not stressing and straining and perceiving barriers, but giving freely, openly, all that it was meant to give. What if that buttercup wouldn't open up and said, "Oh no, oh no, what if the bees don't like my pollen? What if my colors aren't pretty enough to attract them? What if I open up and there's no pollen to take?" What would happen to the world as we know it? What would happen if you opened up? If you broke through your barriers and shared all the wonderful things inside of you that you were given to share? This week I invite you to think about screens of anxiety, perceived barriers. Keep asking yourself, is that a real barrier, or is that a barrier that I can find a way over, under, around, or through? I thank you again for being with me today. And I invite you to go to our webpage, www.spiritofunitychurch.org, to learn more about us. And if you'd like to send a donation, you know, this ministry is supported entirely by the tithes and love offerings sent by those who are blessed by it. And now, as I send you forth through the week, I want you to know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you.